Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to part 2 on my take on the song Why? A somewhat controversial song because as it seems that both of the versions that I have state unreleased, the booklet says that it was a B-side. So I don't know how you would not release something if it's a B-side. It seems like that means it's been released. It's been put out into the world. So a little bit of controversy there. Also, a little bit of controversy. I was curious since this appeared on the Demons and Wizards bonus CD, or deluxe CD, I should say. I was curious as to who played on it because obviously we have a couple of lineup changes. You know, we've lost a bass player and a drummer, and we've gained a bass player and a drummer. But actually, we've gained 2 bass players because Mark Clarke played on at least The Wizard, maybe more. Gary Thane is believed to have played on the rest of the album. What it lists for Why, though, is what's really interesting. Of course, it says it's unreleased, and then it talks about the fact that it was released. But apparently the controversy on this one is whether it was Gary Thane that played bass or Mark Clarke. So I honestly have no idea who it is that we're listening to. All I know is I think that whoever it is did a fantastic job. It is confirmed in the booklet that Lee Kerslake did play drums on this version. And, it's certainly different from the other version that we heard in the last episode. I really like this. I like this one better. I feel that the song has come together more. I don't know, maybe in the B-side version, because, if that was on a 45, those songs were typically short. So maybe they edited out all those verses that didn't have lyrics and just released it that way. Or maybe it was this version that got released. I honestly have no idea. But my point, in doing the show is always about just the music itself. I find those points interesting when there's controversy, because really with Uriah Heep, there is not a lot of controversy with this band. You don't read about them smashing up hotel rooms or, taking all the furniture out of the room and putting it in the elevator and sending it downstairs and, chainsawing through hotel rooms. Like, you don't hear about stuff like that. At least I never did. And this band was fairly clean. They went out and did their thing. So all the controversy with these guys, it seems to be with who played what on what. So it's not even a matter of who played on the song. It's a matter of what did they actually do on that song, because you've got vocalists, you've got musicians that play different instruments, some that play the same instruments as other musicians. And so you never really know who's playing what. It's really kind of a debacle, but I'm all about the music and the song. As far as I'm concerned, what the band releases, they release it as a collective. And Paul played drums on a couple of Beatles songs, and why would you do that when you have a perfectly good drummer right there? So it's not unheard of. It was probably done more with Heep than most other bands. But whatever their magic was, whatever they did to make the songs happen, it obviously was magical. I mean, the end result certainly can't be questioned. I suppose you could, but why bother? It's just great music. And as long as you enjoy what you're hearing, I like to give credit where credit is due, but I don't always know where to give it. So I just give it to the band, because really every release is the collective work of everyone in the band. And whether this person sang the high harmony or that one did, or this person did, an extra solo, really at the end of the day, it's the project of the band in tandem with the producer and the audio engineer. Because without the audio engineer, let's say, they are kind of the unsung hero of the recordings, because they really shape the final sound. And especially back then, it mattered when everything had an individual sound. I mean, as you'll hear when we go to Demons and Wizards next, it sounds, just the sound of it is different from Look at Yourself, which is vastly different from Salisbury, which is different from Very Heavy, Very Humble. And, the albums all had personalities back then. Just as much as the artwork, the sound that shaped that album was different. And that's something I've always really loved about that time in music. These days, I don't really feel it as much. When I interviewed Mick, we talked a little bit about that, and he pointed out that it really comes down to the musicians. You have different people in the band. They change out, their equipment or whatever. They're going to have a different sound. So that's really the only difference. But the overall tone of an album now, just that digital sound that's created, it just seems very much like it could have been anybody that went into the studio and recorded that day, with the exception of the performance and the individual sound of the instruments. But the overall sound of the album, like the last 3 Deep Purple albums, were all recorded in the same studio. And to me, with exceptions maybe of the style of the song, you could interchange some of those songs between different albums, and you wouldn't know from a sonic perspective that they were necessarily recorded at different times, because they sound very much the same. And that's what I mean. Like the albums don't have that individual tone to them anymore, like they did, which I always felt was another instrument in the band, was that shape of the album. But in this case, we've got a song that was recorded by 2 different versions of the same band. This song has more lyrics to it. It was obviously more polished, and they worked on it more. Maybe they went into the Demons and Wizards sessions and said, "Hey, you know what? We've got that song. Let's work on that. Let's see if we could do something with that." They moved it further. They recorded a version, but ultimately decided it wasn't suited to the album. And I can kind of understand that, because if you're familiar with the Demons and Wizards album, thematically, it doesn't necessarily fit with it. I don't think, I don't know where I would have put it. You know, what's in the scheme of the song order, I don't know where it would have gone. But in any case, I think we should just get into the song and listen to it, take it for its own version. If you guys want to compare it to the other version, that's fine. I can only say that I like it better. I think it's more developed. Obviously, you know, time had gone on between the time that they first started writing it and this session. And you've got a couple of different people, regardless of who the bass player was. If it wasn't Paul Newton, then we've got a new bass player. We've got a new drummer on it. So a fresh perspective is always good to have on a song that's kind of stagnant as well. So here is the Demons and Wizards version of the song "Why."
Thought of no tomorrow, the pain, tears, and sorrow, and you never told me why. The way you cheated and mistreated, I could never ask you why. Well, I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna find out what's been messing up your mind, messing up your mind.
So I'm gonna go back to the concept of this is also maybe like an in writing progress or demo version of the song, because there was a couple of missteps that sounded like on the bass at the beginning. I think if it would have been set to release, if that wasn't going to get edited out, that probably would have been re-recorded. But again, if this is an unreleased version or noted as unreleased, and the bass sounds really good, nice and strong there, giving a good groove to the song, because that's really the only thing that's moving it at the beginning. And then you've got some keyboards that you can kind of hear in the background, really reverbed out voice. Probably, I would say, a little too much for where the instruments are. Really kind of makes it almost a little too spacey for my taste. But I do like the idea of a heavy reverb. I think for me anyway, that's just a little too much. And then obviously right at the end of this here, we got the drums kicking in, but it sounds more cohesive already. It sounds like it has a focus and a direction, and it doesn't feel as much as they're searching at this point for what they want. It feels like, okay, we're narrowing this down. We've got a good feel for it now. Let's lay it down and kind of see where it's at. So I like it really strong so far.
For I know that you're there.
I'm really glad they kept the tremolo guitar because that just sounds so nice and rich in there. It really fills in a little bit of that background. It's kind of the whole song's kind of mixed a little bit weird right now because the bass is really very, very much in the mix, and it's a little too much for my taste. I think it drowns out a little bit of the vocal, and everything else then is going to start fighting for a space as well, and it just doesn't work when it's that out of balance. But it's definitely a good groove. I really like what the bass is doing, and the keyboards are playing nicely in the back. You got a good solid drum beat there, and really cool. Oh, sure. And as soon as I say that about the mix, the vocals get a little more powerful and everything seems to be a little bit more in balance now. So maybe that was really the problem, is that the vocals were too quiet in conjunction to the bass. But what I like about the mix is that you could hear everything very clearly. You could tell what everyone's doing, which is very nice and rare when everybody's playing, so heavily as they are at this point, but very nice nonetheless. A couple of things I forgot to point out too is that this is listed as an extended version of the song Why, but what's interesting is it's a couple of minutes shorter than the version that we heard from Look at Yourself. So I'm not sure what constitutes extended. Usually it means that it's the song plus, maybe more of what happened after the fade out or, an extended solo that was edited out. I'm not really sure what it is in this case, because here the song just pretty much started right away. It didn't have that long dramatic intro that the other version did. And so I'm not really sure what's in the song that constitutes extended. I'll just say that. But in any case, it's already started off very powerful. It's not a heavy rocker, but it kind of is a heavy song. It's maybe just a little bit lower of a tempo, but definitely something that's got a lot of power to it, and I'm liking it. I would encourage you to go back and listen to that last section again, because the bass guitar is just shredding during this. I struggle with the idea of saying the word overplaying, because it really kind of is almost like he's just not even aware that anyone else is there and he's just, playing whatever. And I mean, it all fits, it all works, but it's like you don't normally hear a bass player playing like that behind a vocal. So I'm almost tempted to say it's overplaying only because it's under the vocal. If it were, during a passage where it was the bass guitar's time to shine, I think it might be suited to that. It's certainly, it works, but for this kind of song, it's like everything is pretty simple except for the bass guitar. So I'm not sure, I guess that really comes down to taste, if you guys think it's overplaying the part or not. I think it's a little much for being under the vocal. I think, in any other section, this would be perfect and some pretty, fantastic playing, no doubt. But it's like I watch these drum videos, where people can play these just unbelievable things. And I'm watching them going like, how is a human being doing that? But then I think about, okay, that's cool and all on its own, but where can you apply it? Like, is that valid or valuable in an actual song? And for the most part, those kind of things are not. And so I'm right kind of on the edge of going, it's just too much for my taste for this, but I like that the bass is rocking the song. I just think it's a little bit, solo-y for a verse. Anyway, what do you guys think? That was actually a pretty cool segment there. I don't know if it was supposed to be a solo. I don't think so. I think it was just basically a continuation of the verse, just with no vocal, because everybody was just kind of rocking in their own way. You got drums and guitar or handling the rhythm. Bass is kind of still soloing, but that's what it was playing during the verse. So I'm not really sure that's supposed to be a solo. And then the keyboards were just doing these, really powerful chords and swells and stuff that we're so used to. But it was a cool section nonetheless. I think that you could actually build, like, you could take that and build a really cool instrumental song around that as well, because it's got all the power. And that could have been cool. I mean, I like the vocal, and but it kind of just changes the feel of the song for me when the vocals come in, because you've got so much covering the rhythm side. It just kind of feels like it not dies down, because it has the same amount of power, but it feels somehow diminished to me. I don't know how to explain it, which is great for a podcast host. But yeah, it's like listening to that section just shows me so much more power. I really like it.
Perhaps it's best for us to stand together and try to live our life as one. And maybe we will find we're still together to watch the setting of the sun.
I like how musically they came into that last part just a little more quietly, but then, just ended up even bigger by the end of it. Great harmony section there. I really like that. I could kind of feel the workings of that in the last version, and really like what they added here. Real powerful, nothing that lasts too long of a time. I kind of felt like in the other version, and I can't remember where this goes after here, but I kind of remember in the other version that really long passage with the vocal, just kind of setting up the potential for those harmonies. And I thought, boy, you could really chop a couple of measures out of this pretty easily and still make it good. And yeah, I like what they did there. Good God, man, that was a hell of a bass solo. And I'm going to call that a bass solo because it was obviously very featured there. Man, that is a workout. For me, the first 4 bars would have been a workout, but that was a workout. Some fantastic playing there. I really like the organ swells, of course, and the guitar. Really doesn't sound screechy, but it really has like a good, higher mid-range sound to it right now. And I love the way that those two things are cutting in. The drums are just laying down some really solid foundation there. And I could be wrong. I could be, but in this song, I've heard a couple of little inflections of Magician's Birthday. I think in this, there's a little bit of the drums there that sound like that middle section. And then just those notes those filler notes that were coming from the guitar a little earlier kind of, had a little bit of a Magician's Birthday feel to it. So I don't know, maybe subconsciously those ideas came back, but or it could just be my vivid imagination, which is also very possible. But in any case, the song is just on fire at this point. Everybody's just cranking it, and it's got a great groove to it. I could see this being a really good dance club song too. I don't know if the rock and roll side of it, but just like that section right there, that beat, that screeching guitar and organ, crazy bass solo, I could really see that playing well in the dance clubs back then. And I don't know, maybe it was. Couldn't tell you.
Perhaps it's best for us to stand together and try to live our lives as one. And maybe we will find we're still together to watch the setting of the sun.
I want to point out too that the structure of this song is actually very interesting because you've got, each section and where you feel that the section ends and it stops and it comes down and back in, and you think that that's where, the next set of vocals is going to start or whatever, but it goes, a few bars and then it starts in, and it's an interesting arrangement there. I don't know how that came about, but certainly a little bit different than what you would expect, which is always nice to have, something that's not standard, something that kind of throws you off a little bit. And, this song is so powerful. To have that on top of that is pretty cool. I think I've described everything in this song as pretty cool. So in general, the way that I do this podcast, as opposed to my other podcast, is that on this one, I edit as I go. So, each section when I have to stop to either start or stop the music or start or stop this dialogue is a break in the recording. So I have the opportunity to, with the voice, you hear the click of the keyboard of me hitting start and the space bar of me hitting stop. And I edit all that out as I do each section. So as I went to move this last section into place, I saw how slow it started off as opposed to how quickly it ended. And that really, it really picked up some pace, especially in the last moments. But what a blisteringly powerful ending. Everybody just, going crazy, but keeping it together, staying together with the timing changes. Very, very well done. It really felt more like a final song that you would do at a concert. Maybe before you're going to come out and do the encore, you're just, you're putting everything into it, and then you're going to go take your couple minutes off the stage and come back and play that last hit that everybody's been waiting for. Just a powerful, real live, cohesive piece of music right there. I'm amazed at how much of the song is just a bass guitar going crazy. But I really like this one. I think that this really had some potential. I'm kind of sad that it didn't get released as maybe a bigger part of something, because I think it certainly had all the power and all those things that you love from Uriah Heep. Great drum beat, killer bass playing, great guitar and organ interaction. You got harmonies, you got a strong voice. The only thing I thought was a little bit weak in the voice is just, you got this blistering bass playing, and then you hear, yeah. Just a little, yeah, in the background, not powerful, not really feeling the bass, just kind of like, yeah, keep doing that instead of, yeah, I'm feeling it. It just didn't really have that power. So it kind of took away a little bit from the song for me. But apart from that, man, just a killer track. I really am sad that this didn't get somewhere within the band. Maybe it did have some success as a B-side. I certainly hope so. I'm not sure what it was a B-side to, but whatever it was, a lot of times when those songs are released, they at least do get some good attention. And I definitely like this version much better than the one on the Look at Yourself Deluxe CD. But like I said, to be fair, they're both works in progress. They're not, they didn't make the album, either version. But I could see this being on an EP or something like with Home to You, which is another bonus track off of Demons and Wizards that we'll get to here before too long, and because our next episode starts Demons and Wizards already. But it's really fascinating how songs are developed and put on an album, or developed and shelved, or just the development stops. I'm glad they picked up this one again and worked on it, because I really like this version. Obviously, it's not perfect. The bass was a little wonky at the beginning. You got a couple of stick clicks that you can hear throughout it. Tambourine was nice, though. You don't hear a lot of tambourine in Uriah Heep music, but that was certainly nice, at least not on the rockers anyway. And I thought that was a nice little addition there in the middle. But such a great and powerful song. So I'm glad that it found some light on these deluxe CD versions. And that's going to wrap it up, guys, not just for this song, but for Look at Yourself. Can you believe it? We're already 3 albums in to this 24-plus album saga. I don't know how many it's going to be, because they keep putting out albums. And I'm really glad that they are. I'm really hoping that they'll be able to make that time in February to go record another one. It would definitely be better if they were able to do it in the studio together instead of doing it, sending each other parts and stuff like that. There's a certain magic to a band recording together. I think it's more honest. I think it's more realistic. It's more human, because when you're apart and you can just record your parts on your own, you're too busy being worried about the perfection of it and not just feeling it with that moment, because you're not with your bandmates. You're not all looking at each other and smiling because you're enjoying the company and the song and the moment. And, everything, when you're isolated, you just tend to make it too perfect, and you can lose a lot of that human factor and just the naturalness of the playing, just trying to be perfect. So I would be a big advocate for them hoping to make it into the studio in February. And let's just all hope they do. And then that'll give me another album to review, because 24 is not enough, not even close. So, as we wind down the show here in this album, I want to let you guys know that you can follow the show at the scotthaskin.com website and just click on the Uriah Heep podcast link. And then I've got a bunch of my own other stuff there if you're interested. Also, you can find us on Facebook at Uriah Heep Podcast, at Twitter at Heep Podcast, and Instagram at Uriah Heep Podcast. And then, of course, the email for the show is uriahheeppodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for hanging in there with me through another Uriah Heep album. God, Look at Yourself is such a good album. And as much as I don't like the cover art of the album, had I not been drawn in to listen to this one way or another, no pun intended, because that's a different song. But I would have really been sad to know how much I missed out on. So I'm glad that I was already a big fan of Uriah Heep when I came across it. It was pretty much once I was hooked, I wanted to hear all the entire back catalog and everything that they had done so I could see how much there was to enjoy. And this is an album that definitely was one that I've enjoyed greatly, as you've heard me say throughout each song, how much each one really just resonates with me. Even the bonus tracks, I could say they could use with some producing, but they certainly are valid songs. They're not anything that I wouldn't have done something with at some point. And I'm really glad that I was able to hear those on these deluxe CD issued versions. And thank you guys again. Thanks for all the feedback and all the ratings and all that good stuff. It's much appreciated. All the shares. I see a lot of the posts get shared quite a bit. You don't see that on Instagram because you can't really share a post, but on Facebook and Twitter, I do see quite a bit of that, especially Facebook. And just thank you guys so much. It really means a lot to me. I'm really looking forward to tackling Demons and Wizards, which, even though the song That's the Way That It Is was my introduction to Uriah Heep, that really was just a familiarity thing. I didn't really get to know their music. I did know the song Stay on Top, I think, before I got into Demons and Wizards. But Demons and Wizards was really my real entry point into the band, the stuff that made me say, I really like these guys. I want to know everything that they've ever done. And, as you can hear, we're getting through everything they've ever done. But it's a great album. Look at Yourself, fantastic album as well, and really enjoyed reviewing it. So thank you, guys. We'll see you next week. Everyone have a safe and happy New Year. I hope that you guys are doing well and being smart out there. Let's get this COVID thing over with so we can get these guys back on tour and coming to a city near you. And so that when people write in to ask Mick and they say, hey, when are you going to play my country? He has a better answer than when this COVID thing is over. Thank you, guys. Take care. We'll see you next week. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!